By its very nature, the DAX Sleuth is a dependency and precedent tracer for your DAX measures. So if we take a look at the left-hand side of the screen here, right now I'm looking at the budget measure, which is fairly simple. There's no plus or minus that's showing up on this. This is just a standalone individual measure. And if I move off it, you'll see it is highlighted in a nice light yellow color that indicates it is an explicit measure. Now, if I go and take a look at some of these other ones though, percent of sales group, nice dark green here with a little plus. If I double click on it, it will expand the tree down to show me that it has a child measure of sales. This is kind of cool. It's a very simple one here, but we can see that sales shows up in a couple of times in that measure. If we take a look at something more complex like burger sold all time, we can see it actually drills down a few different levels here. We've got 3 altogether. And growth versus 2009 actually drills down. We have sales units, plus we have 2009 sales unit or units sold, which also includes sales units as well. Now the nice thing about this is that this is showing the precedents for all of the measures that we built, but we can also show dependence. So if we just click over here, we could take a look at something like, say, sales units, which is now showing that it's used multiple times. If we double click on it, it'll show us all of the measures that use sales units in their calculation. And this is really nice because we're seeing this one sort of fundamental building block that gets reused across our dimensional model, which is really, really healthy. We can see 2009 units sold also goes and feeds into growth 2009, so we can trace that entire chain. And this is really helpful if you're trying to figure out, am I using a measure? Can I delete it? If you got a whole bunch of stuff that actually comes off it, probably not a good idea. So it's kind of nice. Of course, you can also turn this off as well, but since the point of this is really about looking at what our tracing capabilities are, we're not going to do that. I'm going to set it back to precedence because that's typically how I look at things. Now, that's just for tracing the measure chain themselves, for seeing how the DAX interacts. But what's also kind of cool about this is that if you're using the pro version of Monkey Tools, you also have the ability to see where your measures are used in your workbook right through the DAX Sleuth interface. So if I go and take a look, for example, at sales units, you'll notice that this is actually used on 3 different pivot tables. So right now I'm actually on sheet 3 looking at pivot table 2, but let's go click on pivot table 1. Notice it actually selects the worksheet and selects that pivot table for me in its entirety. If I now go back to the sheet that I was on by clicking on pivot table 2, it'll select the entire pivot for me. And here's pivot table 2 on sheet 5. Great names for pivot tables, really should be cleaned up. But at the end of the day, the nice piece here is that we can navigate between the worksheets and see exactly which measures are used on which pivot tables so that we can actually figure out, is it the right one or not? Now I want to show you one more thing though, because this is all pivot tables. What about our sales dollar measure? So if we take a look at this one, we can see that this is used on 4 different pivot tables on different worksheets. Here's the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. We can see that it's also used in a pivot chart. And if I click on that, it will actually go and select the pivot chart for me so I can see exactly where that's used as well. It also tells me about the OLAP or cube formulas that we use inside the workbook as well. Notice this, if I click on B5, it takes me right over here to the sales. And if I go and just drag this down a little bit, you'll see there's a cube member with measure sales right in there. So it's actually picking these things up as well. So a super useful tool to be able to go and actually find these things. Now, if you do happen to have used a measure inside something that's in a named range in some way with a cube formula or something like that, unfortunately, we obviously can't select it because we can't select the named range, but we will at least tell you what's there so that you can then go and take a look at it through your name manager as well. So these are some of the handy little audit functions and tracing functions that we have built into the DAX Sleuth, and I hope that you'll find them fairly useful in your work. Thanks for watching this episode of Using Monkey Tools. To get your own monkey, visit our website at monkeytools.ca. Or if you subscribe to Skillwave's Self-Service Business Intelligence Academy, you'll get a free annual pro license included with your subscription. And remember, Monkey Tools was developed to support better Excel and Power BI solutions. If you want to learn how to really master these tools, you should definitely check out our full course catalog at skillwave.training.